I call to order the GCC regular board meeting, June the 21st, 2022 at 4:45 p.m. Roll call. Mr. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Just 1 second, please. Mr. Harry Block.
Here.
Mr. Bruce Mandrake.
Here.
Mr. Jack Turner.
Here.
Lily Campbell. All board members are present and accounted for. SB 361 board resolution. And again, I will entertain a motion for the board resolution. As you know, this is just to certify that we are virtual and that we are following the Brown Act and that everything is in order according to the Brown Act. So that's SB 361, the board resolution. I will have a motion for approval of 361 board resolution.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Anderson.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none. Roll call. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Harry Block. Mr. Block.
Yes.
Bruce Mandrake.
Yes.
Jack Turner.
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. So SB 361 board resolution passed unanimously. So thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad to see so many faces here on this very, very hot afternoon. Thank all of you, Dr. Peterson, Cabinet, and the people who will be giving us our report from the school. So we will talk to you later, and thank you so much. And thanks to those of you who are watching us and watching with us virtually. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. And now, do we have any public comments?
There's no public comments tonight.
Thank you very much. And now we are moving to the annual organization item, which is next on the agenda. And board is moved to approve the following organization item. Item number 1 is board terms for directors Lily Campbell and Mark Anderson. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I move we approve the nomination and election of Lily Campbell and Mark Anderson.
Okay, yes, Mr. Mandrake.
I'll second that motion.
You will second that motion. All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there comments, questions, comments on this item? Hearing none, seeing no hands, I will now call roll call. And again, we are voting on extending the terms for directors Lily Campbell and Mark Anderson. That is what we are now voting on at the organization item. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Harry Block.
Yes.
Bruce Mandrake.
Yes.
Jack Turner.
Yes.
And Lily Campbell, yes. Okay, Mr. Anderson, we are back on for another year. So,
Right. You're here.
yeah, I see you, Miss Ash. Yeah, okay, we're back on. Okay, the next item is the appointment of board officers. Now, let me go down the list of what has been in place in terms of the board officers. Lily Campbell's president, Vice President Bruce Mandrake, Secretary Jack Turner, Treasurer Mark Anderson. And we have some board Community Business Academy Advisor Council, Harry Block, and the GCC Foundation, Mark Anderson. These are the people who were elected for this year. Now the election is open for new appointments for this year. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I move that we maintain the present board structure.
Maintain the present board structure by Mr. Turner.
Second.
Who is that?
Harry.
Oh,
Mr.
Mr.
Block.
Block, second. Okay. All right. We're now open for comments, discussions, and any oppositions. I don't see any hands. I don't hear any opposition. Well, Okay, roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell. Well,
Congratulations, Lily, again. Our condolences.
now look, okay, I appreciate your vote of confidence. Thank you, Bruce.
And Lily,
Yes,
Lily, I hope that in the next year, you'll be able to get out to the schools where you really have a passion and we really appreciate your attendance. So I'm sure the superintendent will make that happen this next year.
yes, I hope we will be able to do that because I am really having withdrawal pains. You know, how you get the shakes and what have you. Every time I think about not going to school, I have the withdrawal pain. So I am certainly hoping the next year will be a different year.
If I could put you in an immunity bubble to keep you safe, I would do it now. But we will be monitoring for when it is appropriate and certainly do our best to get you out there.
All right. Well, it is. Thank you for your vote of confidence, everyone. And we will continue to do what we do best for GCC, all of us working together, because one person can't do it. It's all of us being there on time, working together and working with the board. So thank you again. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, everyone. Any other comments or discussions? All right.
On behalf of staff, we also want to celebrate and recognize the stability of our team and that all of you are continuing to serve. And we appreciate your support of our mission and vision and the work that we do together.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. All right. So with that, we got one other item, approval of GCC board meeting dates, 2022, 2023. They were attached to the agenda, and I'm sure all of you had a chance.
They are actually farther on in the consent agenda, Madam President.
Okay, it was under this, underneath. Okay, all right. Well, we will move on. Superintendent's update. Dr. Peterson, we are waiting for you for your update and all of the good things that's been happening with you and to you.
All right, well, good things, certainly all the good things. And some of those good things you're going to hear about today when we have our final set of school annual reports as well. And so I certainly want to call out some things that have been going on. We have Dr. Gold and Mr. Maury Elliott, Jason Sample, and myself have been attending 4 days of community of practice work entitled Charter Schools in Decade 3, and interfacing with other charter leaders about where charters have been, where they're going, and what does best practice look like. So we're excited to see where those conversations take us and also where the networking connects us to. We also had last Friday and Monday a 2-day admin retreat, technically a day and a half, for our GCC administrators, where we got together and reflected on the current year and made some plans for next year. We will be finalizing that with another day and a half when they come back on calendar in late July. And it's a lot about excellence and integration and coherence. And but we also just enjoyed being together. We did have some laughter, some connection, and some joy in the room. So it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And we are also in the midst of evaluation period. And so all of our various principal roles, vice principal roles, admin roles have all gone through ROPE, which you will remember is reflection on administrator practice. And then cabinet evaluations are next. And so also we as cabinet members are all doing our classified evaluations at this point. So recently I did some deep work with Dr. Gold and with some assistance from Dr. McCormick and others on the GCC Teacher Leader Program for next year. And we have a great plan for next year. We're looking forward to it. We have t-shirts and we have excitement and we have passion, and we're gonna be working with a group, our third cohort of GCC teacher leaders. So we will be giving you some more on that as it unfolds. Also, we have been having ongoing impromptu calls, meetings, Zooms, emails, everything else about staffing and continued staffing changes. As you guys have noticed from your consent agenda under personnel, the world at large is in a very chaotic place with churn. And a lot of people making choices to move, making choices to work closer to home. And we, just like our districts and businesses around us, are seeing a little bit of churn. So as that happens, we're doing hiring, we're doing some changing of positions, and really want to give a big shout out to our Human Resources Department, who's working overtime to ensure as someone gives notice, they get their check, and as the principals go to hire, they're helping support make quick hires, and it's a lot right now. So standing ovation if I could do it for Ms. Laura Berrigan and her team. Also, we have been deep into function planning. And the reason we're looking deeply at functions, as you will remember, is our very own Dr. Christine McCormick has taken another position. Tonight is her last GCC board meeting. We would definitely want to affirm her for her 4 years with us and all that she brought to her role. But because of that, we're divvying up her various roles and duties and functions. So we have been doing some more work on that to ensure its excellence and an excellent handoff, if you will, from Dr. McCormick to the cabinet team. All of our various GCC schools have some form of excellent summer school programming happening, really trying to work with some outside providers, which is new that we're able to do because we have our ELOP funding, but really some high engagement, high interest stuff happening at each of our campuses. And we hope when we come back in the fall to maybe to be able to have a study session item and tell you a little bit about each of those and how they were, how excellent they were. It would not be an update if I didn't mention the word COVID-19, and it is a word I would like to quit having to talk about, but we are still testing. We're still under a testing mandate if you are not vaccinated and you're working in the summer. We are continuing to listen to our local public health officials. There has been a minor decrease in the COVID case rates, and yet there have been no new health or safety protocols. We continue to provide testing kits. Every time I go in the central office, I find more testing kits. So I'm sure we're sharing testing kits. Also, we continue to be involved with all of our various AXA events, including an upcoming leadership event, some AXA Women's Leadership Network stuff that we've been a part of planning for. And we're excited to see how our various participants in AXA continue to impact and influence in those roles. Our amazing consultants, Lyle Kurtman and Wendy York, who are our two biggest supporters of the deep work we're doing around coherence and leadership, have been wrapping up the year and reviewing our work and making plans for what next year will look like. And we are also excited with our new administrators to work with Lyle. I personally have been able to do some meetings with Lyle and a few of our new administrators to talk about their WPIs, their values, their plans, their goals, and to just really be a part of establishing their understanding of themselves as leaders. We have two of our young aspiring leaders at the, I may get the title wrong, UCLA AXA Principals Academy. That might not be the right word, but somewhere in there is the right stuff. Yeah, so we have two administrators down at UCLA this week sending me pictures, telling me how they're representing the GCC. And then we do also have two administrators. I don't know if it's starting right now or if it's next week. We have two administrators who are in the CSDC leadership program as well. So we have a total of 4 of our newer administrators really going deep in leadership learning this summer, and really want to give them a shout out. And last but not least, again, just an official kind of goodbye to Dr. McCormick and a thank you. We gave her a cabinet lunch send-off last week as well, and have lauded her in a couple of different locations with a couple of different groups of people, but definitely know that we want the board to understand that it will be a loss, but we're happy for her and for her next opportunity. And that's my update, Madam President.
Thank you so very much. Who are the two principals at UCLA going to UCLA?
Danny Coonan
Oh, yeah.
from HLA and Vicente Lovano from Futures.
Well, I don't know if you know it, but I was the second class that entered UCLA as a principal. And I tell you, it was the best thing that I could have done as a principal. It really taught me what I didn't know. So I am just thrilled that
Maybe
we
what
have two
we'll
people that are still
yeah.
going.
we'll do is we'll have Melissa set up a Zoom meeting with you and the two individuals when they come back on calendar in July to
Oh.
kind of discuss their experience. That might be
I
a
would
nice,
love to do
might be a
that.
nice reflection. Melissa
I
will
might
take
even
notes.
still have my t-shirt. Congratulations, that is great. And Dr. McCormick, you're muted.
Yes, ma'am.
We hate to see you go.
Oh, thank you.
I was so thrilled when I heard that you were coming here because I've known you from Region 2 and what have you.
Mhm.
And it was indeed a thrill to know that you were coming and we were going to be together again. I'm kind of sad, but we all have to do what we have to do. We certainly will miss you, and you did add so much to our group. So thank you for the 5 years you were here. And we do wish you absolutely the best in your new position. And we're here to support you if we can, any kind of way. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank you personally for being here with us, and we will miss you tremendously. Thank you. Good luck.
Oh, thank you so much. It's one of those bittersweet moments, as always. But yes, I'm absolutely certain we will connect again. And back to Region 2 I go.
Back to Region 2. All right.
Yeah.
We will see you. Okay. And so any other, yes, Bruce.
Just a point of personal privilege. I have a conflict, so I'm going to have to be leaving the meeting. I want to express my support for the Sava, and I'm sorry I'm not able to see your presentation. We have a great group of administrators here, but I have something I have to attend to, so I will have to leave the meeting at this point. So
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for being here through the organization meeting. We're glad you're here, so thank you. Any other comments from the superintendent and Dr. McCormick? Anything else?
You know, I will back up Ms. Campbell to say that while I thought that the calendar was on consent agenda for action, I do not see it. I thought we had placed it there on consent for approval, but you are right. And I was wrong.
Thank you.
And so this is the second time you have seen the proposed board meeting dates.
Yes.
So that is in fact not on consent, Madam President.
Okay, and so I really still need to go back then and have an approval of that board meeting calendar. And board members, I think you did get a chance to see it because it was attached to the agenda. So I am going to be entertaining a motion for approval of the board meeting dates on 2022, 2023.
Move approval.
Yes, Mark, thank you. Move approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Block. Thank you. Any comments, any questions, any discussion on the calendar? Anyone? All right. Hearing none, seeing none, I'm sure that as things come up for the year, we have to make some adjustments. So we will now entertain a roll call. We've already had a motion. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick in his absence. Okay. Jack Turner
Yes.
and Lily Campbell. Yes. So it has been approved by 4 members of the board. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for catching that because I kept looking. I didn't see it. All right. And now we are ready for our study session and looking forward to hearing from the Sava group and all of the good things that has happened that have been happening to you this year. So with that, Dr. Peterson.
Yes. So I know that you see that we have 3 individuals, but as you know, Maury is kind of in a mentor role. He was halftime director of vocational academies. And so the main show today is Miss Ashley Madden and Miss Summer Ash. And as you know, we have a very unique experience at Sava because we have two principals overseeing multiple schools and multiple school campuses. And it is a highly effective team. We're very proud of Ashley and Summer and their great work. And that is not to make less of Maury and the great work that he has done up until this point, and by putting his fingerprints on mentoring Ashley and Summer, but really want to affirm them for this year where they really took on the leadership of the Sava campuses.
So with that, thank you. You're on.
All right, well, I'll jump in, and like Dr. Peterson said, I'm just going to pass the baton here tonight, but want to start. Good evening, President Campbell, GCC board, and Dr. Peterson. It is always a privilege to be able to share at the end of the school year all the great things that our Sava students have accomplished throughout the year. And this year, I'll just say I'm especially proud of Summer, Principal Ash, and Principal Madden, and the work that they have done to grow their leadership, to grow their team, to take Sava to where it is today. There has been incredible growth throughout the year, and that really is attributed to their work, their passion, their commitment to our GCC core values, to our mission, to our vision, and the way that they love Teach and Guide every day. They are incredible leaders, and I'm excited to see what they have to share with you tonight. So Principal Madden and Principal Ash, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Maury Elliott and Dr. Cindy Peterson. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. I want to just welcome you all here to our board presentation. Again, Dr. Lily Campbell, board president. Thank you for having us, board members and cabinet members. Thank you. I want to remind the board that Sava is 3 schools and 6 campuses, and we are ready to get started. All right, and as we move through this presentation, I am really happy to introduce our 4 campus principals. And I know board members on Zoom, you haven't had the chance to interact a ton with our campus principals, but I want to acknowledge them because we couldn't do the work that we do without them and without our staff. And 3 out of 4 of our campus principals are new this school year. And 3 out of 4 of our campus principals have grown from within GCC up to that administrative level position. So I'm happy to introduce Kyle Kassman, our Sava North Market campus principal, Chelsea Nauman, our Sava Sim and Downtown campus principal, Christina Smith, our Sava Power Inn and La Familia campus principal, and Danny Williams, our Sava Elk Grove campus principal. And I'm going to pass it over to Ashley Madden for our good things.
All right, there's so many good things this year to celebrate. And I just want to again thank the board and cabinet for the opportunity to share with you today. First thing that I would like to talk about for good things this year with Sava is we, for the first time, went through a WASC cycle. And we were able to combine all 3 of our schools into one cycle for the first time, which was really exciting. It was new to navigate for Summer and I, but ultimately we came out of that cycle with a 6-year accreditation and a mid-year cycle visit. So we're very proud of the work we did with WASC and all of our stakeholders this year, and are really excited to jump into some new goals for our next 6 years. Another piece that we want to highlight is the opening of our new CTE wing in our Elk Grove campus. You can see the picture of that on the mural picture wall in the middle there. And I just want to affirm Jerry Little for all of his support in getting this facility ready for our students. It is now a space where our Elk Grove campus can house our fire and rescue, photography, fitness and recreation, and our fashion programs. And so this is the first time that we've been able to have a CTE space securely for our Elk Grove students. And we're really excited to expand our partnerships within the Elk Grove community within those pathways. This year, we had a focus for student re-engagement, and this was our highest enrollment year to date across all of our campuses. And Summer and I are really proud of that. We're going to go a little bit more into that when we hit the achievement piece later on in our presentation. Another piece that I wanted to highlight was our fitness and recreation program. We've done a lot of work with this pathway to expand into the tourism sector this year. So we were able to take a group of students to Feather River College a few months ago to participate in their Outdoor Leadership Academy, where they had the weekend to learn how to become a guide in whitewater rafting and rock climbing. And in the off seasons, they will also do snowshoeing and hiking and that sort of thing too in the mountains. So one of the highlights of this program was that one of our students actually decided to enroll within Feather River College as a result of attending this academy. So we're really excited about the growth of this pathway. And another piece of that is we will be using the latest round of our Strong Workforce grant funding to expand into some of the outcomes that Feather River College focuses on for that tourism piece, and to get our students certified in raft guidance and that kind of thing. All right. So we are moving on to some student achievements. One thing that I wanted to focus on first for student achievement was the fact that the COVID pandemic over the past few years really impacted our grad rate. And in addition to last year holding students harmless, and then we were then impacted this year by the passing of the legislation of AB 104, which allowed families to opt into students taking the California minimum state graduation requirements, which is significantly less than what we offer at Sava. This was really to combat the impact of students becoming less engaged during the pandemic. But it kind of changed our grad rate a little bit because this, particularly in Sac City, we had a high percentage of students qualify for this credit reduction. So you can see that inflated our grad rate in Sac City quite a bit, whereas in the Twin Rivers and Elk Grove Savas, we didn't have nearly as many students of the population qualify for that requirement. So moving on, as a DOS school, part of our student achievement outcomes is looking at our college and career indicators on the California dashboard. One of the biggest impacts that we have seen as being a CTE-focused school is increasing the percentage of students who are approaching prepared. So that just simply means that those who are approaching prepared have reached one of the criteria out of two. So one thing that we are prepared to do moving into next year is really help our staff and our students and families understand the importance of becoming pathway completers, taking dual enrollment courses, and how that can increase their post-secondary options, as well as have them hit that indicator of being college and career ready. So that's a big focus that we're going to be moving on next year, as in addition to increasing our internship opportunities. This year, this is our iReady data, and this is the first time that we've used iReady. We found it to be a pretty lengthy test, but now that we've gone through it and have our baseline data, our focus next year will be on providing a testing environment where we can ensure that our scores are valid. All right, and as we know, it's not just testing and the dashboard where we measure student achievement, but it is also a lot of other ways that we see students thrive in our schools. So I wanted to point out a few amazing things that we were able to accomplish this year in terms of our CTE pathways and service learning as well. So we participated once again in the North State Building Industry Association internship this summer. This is what has evolved from the City of Sacramento's 1,000 Strong program, this 1,000 Strong internship program. It is now a construction-focused program that we had 6 students apply for this year, and all 6 students got accepted. So we're extremely proud of those kiddos. And I just wanted to point out that last summer, we also had 6 students participate, and 4 of those 6 students upon completion were offered full-time positions with BIA. So that was a huge accomplishment for those kids. If you see in the middle of on the bottom, whoops, sorry about that. On the bottom slide, that brightly colored mural, those are actually some storage shipping containers on our Power In campus. And we had the service learning opportunity where this summer where students were able to work with an artist and entrepreneur to design and paint this mural that represents all 12 of our CTE pathways. So they got to work and learn about marketing and graphic design strategies, as well as how to pitch an idea to a client who was the artist. In addition, they got to research our own pathways and learn a little bit about each of them. So we had great retention. 14 out of the 15 students who signed up finished, and we got great feedback on how much fun and what they had and what they learned. And then I just also wanted to highlight for the first time our Fitness and Rec program, our capstone course, Recreation Design. We had 3 students that designed and led our first ever staff and students launch into summer field day. So they completely took on the development of this amazing event. There was a kickball tournament, they had food, a little friendly competition. And these students just completely spearheaded meetings with the administrators. They took feedback from students and staff, and they created all the logistics of this event and pulled it off during our last week of school. So we were really proud of those groups of students. All right, and I'm going to pass it over to Summer.
I jump into curriculum. So the first piece of our curriculum is really looking at our school improvement plan, which comes out of our instructional framework. Our focus this year, and for the first time, our focus really surrounds our core math. So students will confidently justify their thinking in grade level math concepts. That was our focus as we move through the school year. Our 2 big goals, our 2 big outcomes that we were looking for was to increase our pass rate in integrated math 1 from 64%, which was last school year, to 70% or above, and for our students to perform 1 grade level higher in mathematics from fall to spring measured by iReady. Part of our SIP work, our school improvement plan, is really going through those cycles of inquiry with our staff and our instructional teams. I want to give a quick example. I want to affirm Kyle Castleman, and because this example is coming from his campus. And as we look at math, we wanted to look at how can we start with students being confident in math. And one of the ways was, hey, make sure all of our students are taking notes. And does taking notes actually work? So part of their first cycle was every student must take notes while they're doing their math work, present those to their teacher, and then be able to take the test. And as they looked at that data, they did see that it worked. And for us, we hit our first outcome. We increased our pass rate in integrated math 1 to 71%. So we hit that one. The second one, for the 1 grade level or higher measured by iReady, for us, we created that goal prior to fully understanding how iReady measures our students, and so therefore we actually don't have this exact data, but we are looking at reworking that measurement as we go into next year so that we can have something that is justified around data. I do want to also affirm, as we're moving to the next slide, Heather Gold for her support in our cycles of inquiry and our SIP plan. Some of our other outcomes out of coherence is that all of our instructional staff, Sava-wide, had a goal that focused on math. Not only did our instructional staff work on their cycles of inquiry, but we also had PLCs that were across campuses. So our non-instructional staff met. We had our enrollment teams meet, our student support teams meet, our onboarding teachers meet. We had our clerks and registrars meet, and they looked at data. They improved their practices through that cycle of inquiry, and they looked at whether or not it worked or not to really engage staff and students in whatever that piece was that they were looking at. So not only was it an instructional staff at Sava, but all of our staff were bought into this process. And then we continue to use iReady and surveys and areas to collect this data. Next steps is we are continuing to focus on math. Math is huge for us. We need to take that to the next level, and that will continue to be our goal. We will use iReady for academic interventions, and we want to make sure that we have that authentic use of data by teachers to drive our instructional practices. Our other goals surrounding LCAP were provide academic and SEL support services. This is GCC Blueprint 5. Our real goal here was to increase our ADA to 95%. I just want to remind the board and our cabinet members that last school year, while we were in COVID, Sava was really hovering around that mid 80 to high 80% for our ADA. And for us to bring that back going into this year, we really did want to get back to 95%. And as you can see, we almost hit that mark, and I am confident, and so is Ashley, that as we move into next school year, we will be at 95% or higher. I do want to highlight, Ashley kind of mentioned this in her slide, but I want to highlight our biggest enrollment ever for Sava, 1,400 students plus at Sava this school year. The need for us and our programs, GCC wide, is huge. Sac City hit 800 for the first time. Elk Grove hit 400 for the first time. Twin Rivers hit 200 for the first time. First time numbers that high. And then our middle school just within Sac City, 120 students. I mean, that's huge. So just wanted to highlight that for everyone. And that's a picture of our student doing the ropes course and engagement in our Sava program. Sorry, I wanted to mention that. As we move into the next one, our other LCAP indicator was around CAS math. Our goal was to decrease distance from standard by 7% on the CAS test. As you know, our students just took those tests as they ended the school year. So we do not have that data yet. We will have preliminary data in the next 2 to 3 weeks that we will be looking at, and then we'll have final data as we come into the fall. All right, back to Ashley Madden for diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Thank you, Summer. First of all, just going into this section, I really want to affirm Jason and Cindy. Jason, for your work leading the GCC administrators and allowing us to hear our voices within the equity work and just understanding where we are and giving us a place to start. Just really thankful for that. And then Cindy, just you continue to be an inspiration for building up women leaders. And I just want to affirm you for doing that for the GCC and for others. So one of the things that Sava, that we've really done in this way to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity that I think has had the biggest impact is all of our IS or independent study caseload managers have looked at their student caseloads on a monthly basis to look at credit acquisition by subgroups. And some of the things that we found were really eye-opening, but it really made all staff become aware of some of our biases and how they may be affecting students. And the great thing that came out of this was just an incredible an incredible willingness overall for staff to jump into this work and to acknowledge it and to make actions that are going to change the outcomes. And I think that that has been one of the most amazing things to see, is just that incredible willingness to do the work. And so we're going to continue to have those caseload reviews, adjust our intervention programs as needed to help students reach their goals. And so we're going to refine that practice and continue to do those pieces moving forward into next year. I just wanted to also mention, in that picture, we have our Women in Construction class. We are moving into Women in Welding and Manufacturing. And the point of these courses are really to allow our young women space to learn that they can succeed in male-dominated fields. And I just want to just affirm GCC and all of our industry partners also have had just some incredible support in building up our women in these fields. So we want to continue that and looking into even creating more of those spaces for students. In terms of parent and community engagement, we've grown a lot this year, especially, I mean, considering that we were coming out of COVID and engagement in general was one of our goals. We've had some strides with our parent and community engagement, even from COVID. I mean, I think Zoom actually allowed some of those barriers like transportation and things to come down and allow the community and parents back into our schools. So we were able to add a new part-time parent liaison position to support all of our Sava campuses. We've increased our internship, different internships. We have created, as a result of our Education and Workforce Convention, over 80 community partners that regularly work with us in different ways. And that is huge, because it's our goal is really to get our students out into the community and serving their community, working within the industry right here in Sacramento. That's our goal, is to make those opportunities for our students. And then just one thing I really wanted to highlight was that we had an all-time high parent involvement and student involvement at each of our campus school site councils. And we were able to bring back a lot of our on-campus events, such as orientations, our CTE showcase, and especially our grad celebrations, where families were able to come and celebrate that milestone with their students. Was really, really wonderful to have after 2 years of not having it.
All right, jumping into SEL. Again, one of our focuses was that re-engagement. So that first picture is our back to school orientations as we started the school year this year. And, you know, everybody came on back to campus, staff, students, families, you know, in their own, you know, comfortability, in their own, you know, excitement or scaredness or hesitancy, whatever it was, that everybody had feelings about coming back. But after our orientation at the beginning of the year, we had nothing but great feedback from our staff, students, and families of how much it was so impactful to re-engage in person, have that connection, build that face-to-face and relationship. And it was an amazing week of orientation Sava-wide to kick off the school year. We also focused on PD. Our new staff attended CKH1. All of our staff did CKH reboot, and we did some trauma-informed training. This was to help support our students, but it was also to help support our staff. Our staff had been disconnected and throughout the last few years because of COVID. So bringing everybody back, reconnecting, team building, it was hugely important and impactful. And then lastly, I want to highlight our students in their ultimate Frisbee. We got to start the first ultimate Frisbee team Sava-wide, and our students went to state level championships. They played some hardcore teams. They went out there and they put all the effort they could into it. They had a blast. We had a huge amount of staff turn out, like 20 plus staff were there cheering them on. I was there, Ashley was there. They won one game. but they came out of it winners because, you know, they put their heart on the line, and it was just so cool and amazing to see.
Right. So I want to just quickly talk about the impact, and we know that only by infusing and integrating the SEL, the academic excellence, and the equity within our schools, that's when we get the greatest impact. Is not when these things are separate, but when we combine them. And one thing that I think that has been such a focus for Summer and I is showing our staff that these things aren't separate, that they are something that you can do, you can put all together, and that will only increase that student achievement and excellence. So I want to say that our focus on that re-engagement coming out of COVID, we were able to do all these things. And by the end of the year, if you walked on campus, it looks like our students had never been away. It was like we couldn't get them to leave sometimes. But we really did this with those three components. By looking at our tiered intervention process and making sure that our intervention process is equitable, and we did that through our PLCs with our counselors and our student support specialists. We looked at that data, how we were using interventions, what students we were referring for, and we made adjustments to make more equitable practices for our teachers. We identified the SEL pieces by making sure we continue to love our students. We treated them as humans first. We sent our staff back to CKH because we forgot how to do handshakes. We forgot how to navigate that connection sometimes when we had been across Zoom. So we needed that, like Summer said, but also we need to be able to model that and show that love back to our students. And then just providing that academic excellence, high enrollment, and increasing live class options, particularly in math and CTE for our students, helped give that expectation that yes, we want you here, we want you learning, this is good for you, and we're going to help you through it. It was only with those three things come together that we saw, okay, we're making an impact here. And so I just want to actually affirm Cindy again for pushing that integration so much and helping us understand the importance of that. Because it's something that Summer and I really take to heart, and we want to impart that to our staff, the importance of the integration.
All right, and lastly, Sava, what's next? All right, so Ashley and I are really excited to start next school year 22-23, oh, I almost skipped a year, with the vision of build your future. So it is so important that our students have a goal to graduate high school and to learn all the components to get to graduation. That is success. But a lot of our students want to know what that next step is. They need to know what that next step is. They need support in that next step. So having our students have a goal for after high school is huge for us. And that's that part of build your future. What comes next? Yes, you've made it to graduation, but what have we done to take you to that next level? So we are really going to jump into next school year with a focus on A through G, with our partnership with ARC and dual enrollment, and having students enroll in core academics for college credits while being enrolled at Sava. We're going to focus more on our pathway completion. We're going to also look at our internships, and we're going to support our students through ASVAB and SAT, along with other things. That's just a quick synopsis. Other things that are next, the new Sac City Middle School facility. Oh my gosh, Lily Campbell, you want to be back on campuses? Come to Power In Middle School first, please. We want to show you this new facility. It's not quite ready yet, probably fully ready November, December, but it is amazing. And our focus there is moving those 120 plus students that are middle school 7th and 8th graders. We have a focus on project-based learning, that hands-on learning with integration of all of our core content, along with building in our CTE programs. So our goal is that our students come out of middle school knowing what pathway they want to go into. So at Sava, we really strive for our students to explore pathways, but if we want to have pathway completers, we need that to start in middle school so that they can explore in middle school and go into high school knowing what pathway they want to choose and completing it. That is huge as we go into next year. That new facility also has an industrial grade culinary arts facility. We are expanding our middle schools, not just at Sac City. Sac City, we really hit that 120, but next year, North Market and Elk Grove already have re-enrollments for 7th and 8th graders. We are expanding our middle school programs, and we are expanding our CTE pathways. We're jumping back into the medical pathway, and we are jumping into manufacturing. This will also lead into internships and our internship expansion. And lastly, our specialists are going to be leading our PLCs, and there's going to be a focus on equity. These are just a couple of our highlights, and we are so excited to jump into the 22-23 school year, and we are ready. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay. My goodness, you guys have been busy. Thank you so much for all of the work that you've been doing. Board members, before I say anything else, do we have board members who, do I see hands of board members? Yes, Mark.
Well, as always, excellent presentation by both of you. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
I was very impressed with the growth in student population in all of the schools. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
I really like the fact that you're growing the internships and you want to grow that even more. I think that's phenomenal, and that you're giving the students more and more opportunities. Also like the fact that we're engaging a lot more of the outside partners, you know, to be a part of our schools and a part of our students' success. That's great to see. And lastly, I was very impressed with the fact that all of you have been able to encourage the parents to be engaged in their students' education. So through your many events and communications that you get out to your student populations, getting those parents involved is obviously so critical, and I'm glad to hear that that was extremely successful. So kudos to you and your staffs.
Thank you.
Yes, Jack. You're on mute.
There we get it.
Okay, there you go.
Maury, I want to thank you and your staff. An outstanding presentation again. And to second what Mark said, your growth is just phenomenal. I can't wait, along with Lily, to look at the new facilities. Yeah,
Yes.
You know, we've passed the funding for some of them, and yet we haven't had a chance to come out and take a look and ooh and ah over them. And Maureen, I've talked to you about it before. I'm impressed also with your partnership with American River College, and certainly encourage that pathway also for your students to expand that as best you can. And I'm sure the Los Rios district is receptive, because they're looking for students anywhere, and I think that's going to be a good partnership over the years. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you get a little time off this summer.
Thank you, Jack.
I agree with everything that's been said. I was taking notes as you were talking, things that I wanted to, the high parent involvement. That was one that I wanted to say congratulations. 80%, 80 community partners, that's phenomenal. Thank you for that. CKH, I noticed CKH was in everything that you were doing. That is so great to see that that program is paying off, and you are using it throughout everything that you're doing, even with math. I noticed that your focus is on math. You know, I was just writing notes down, and when you said Lily Campbell come to the middle school, my heart jumped. I will be there. Just let me know where. I can't thank you enough, guys, for all the work that you're doing, because if it were not for you, and I get tears in my eyes when I say this, and when I talk to people outside of GCC, if it were not for you, there would be kids on the street doing nothing. You are providing programs for them to be successful and for them to have viable partnerships, viable working relationships. So I can't thank you enough. I really cannot thank you enough for what you have built and what you have done with the Sava programs in the last few years. Again, all I can say is thank you. And we applaud you and we love you dearly for all the work that you're doing.
I think Mr. Anderson had his hand raised again.
I just want to say one other thing. You know, since Maury and Ashley and Summer have been doing this for quite a long time, I think you really exemplify a village takes, what is this, the saying?
Takes a
It
village.
takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
I think you guys and your staffs encapsulate that thematically. And it's just amazing work that you do and how you treat these students
Yes.
individually and give them the support and love that they need to be successful. So thank you again very much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You
Mark.
know,
Thank
you
you,
know,
Lily.
I'm going to come back to the fact that my highlight of the whole presentation is that women in construction, which was something that Maury will tell you was my dream that I birthed. I think it actually was birthed on the GIS campus, possibly, where we built something on the backside over there. We also built something for HLA, but it was, how do we encourage these young women in non-traditional fields? And then for it now to have been expanded to women in welding, I mean, I need to come out and see women in welding. So I just really, you know, it's one thing to be able to say my fingerprints were at the beginning, but now it's all yours, because just having an idea, it's kind of a small piece, but implementing and continuing to grow and make it what it is, that's your work and your pride, and excellent job in the whole thing. But you know that I have a preference to tell you the great things you're doing for young women. So great job.
It is
Everyone,
It is special to have a team of implementers. I will tell you that. And across the board with the principals, with the campus principals, down to the teachers, it's incredible. It really is.
It is incredible. It's incredible what you've done in the last few years that you guys have been there and the change that we've seen, because we've been here long enough to see all of this take place. So it's just phenomenal. That's all I can say. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the report.
We do have one more study session item, but I would say Team Sava, if you need to sign off after your annual report, you're welcome to do so. You're welcome to stay on. It's your choice. All right.
Thank you
Madam
so much.
President.
But no, you need to go and get rested for the next go round. So thank you again. All right, board members, we're moving on. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We're moving on to another study session, Universal Pre-Kindergarten Program. Who would you introduce that?
This is going to be our Director of IB and Special Projects, soon to be our Director of Academics on July 1st, Miss Joy DeCoy.
Miss Joy DeCoy, so good to see you.
Good afternoon. It's been a pleasure to serve GCC as Director of IB and Special Projects. And underneath that Special Projects umbrella, I've had the pleasure of supporting our schools with implementation of Universal Pre-Kindergarten. So tonight I would like to share with you, for information purposes, our plan for GCC. It is a joint plan for all of the charter schools that we oversee that will be implementing TK, and some of the main components and new requirements for Universal Pre-Kindergarten. First, I'd like to talk to you about why. California is prioritizing learning options for our youngest citizens. California leaders recognize the research that demonstrates that early learning matters, and that students who have a quality preschool experience have an advantage in school, and not just in school, but in life, compared to students who did not have a quality preschool opportunity. And this is especially true for students with adverse experiences. So implementing TK for our schools does exactly fit our goal to provide inclusion and equitable experiences for students. The Budget Act of 2021 provided funding to expand traditional kindergarten programs and California state preschool programs. So all charter schools who are authorized to offer kindergarten must also offer universally available transitional kindergarten for all 4-year-olds by 2025-26. This school year, our schools received implementation funds and will receive traditional ADA funding for TK students moving forward. So second, what does that mean for our GCC charters? This means that 5 of our schools will now offer a TK transitional kindergarten program: CCCS, COA, EPIC, GIS, and HLA. Currently, only GIS had a standalone TK class, and EPIC this year had a TK combo class. Some of the changes include expanding the TK age requirement. This year, students had to turn 5 by December 2nd. Next year, they will have to turn 5 by February 2nd, which increases the number of students that are eligible for TK. And this will continue to move back in increments until all students who turn 4 by September 2nd will be eligible for school. This year, this coming school year, our sites will also offer early TK admittance, meaning that even if they turn 5 after February 2nd, we will still be serving them as long as they turn 5 by June 30th. Another requirement is that it reduces the teacher-student ratio to 1 teacher to 12 students, and also requires these transitional kindergarten teachers to either have 24 units of ECE courses or experience teaching in preschool. The guidance also requires that sites who receive ELOC or expanded learning funding continue to offer the full 9-hour program to TK students based upon family need. Our sites will provide the required instructional minutes in the morning, and we will also offer students care through the extended day until 3 p.m. and also till 6 p.m. and after school care. And we will pair multiple funding sources. So if sites receive ACEs, they will be able to use this money to also support TK and expanded care. Sites will use LCAP and ELOC funding to provide these options for students. And lastly, how will we as GCC support implementation of TK for students? In April, we sent out a needs assessment to all GCC staff and families to determine interest and needs for preschool and traditional kindergarten. We had close to 150 responses, most of them expressing a desire for us to serve 3 and 4-year-olds, as well as a need for extended care, meaning till 6 p.m. And since then, I've worked with each site principal to determine how their site might best meet the needs of their families within their own capacity. We've also reached out to community partnerships, such as SETA Head Start and other LEAs, to see how we can partner with them to provide preschool and offer TK to students who do not meet the age eligibility. And we're also working with SCOE, who is partnering with Los Rios Community College District, part of their consortium, to provide ECE classes and trainings for our staff. And lastly, next year, we will be providing support. I will be as Director of Academics, and Dr. Gold as Executive Director for Elementary, to support our site principals and curriculum coaches how to best implement the preschool foundations. They have their own set of standards, and how we can fit our curriculum to be a continuum from preschool all the way to 3rd grade and best align it to assessments. And this is how we will support our school sites next year. And before you attach your agenda, you have the formal universal pre-kindergarten plan. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have about our pre-K plan.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Jack.
Yes, I strongly support the program, and I'm really supportive of it. Just a question on the funding of it. You said the ratio is 1 staff person or teacher per 12 students. Is that, and we receive the full apportionment for each student? Is that the same as an ADA?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Turner, for that question. We will receive the same apportionment for TK students as we receive for kindergarten students. But the ratio is 1 to 12, but we will have a class size of 24, and we will support that ratio with 1 certificated teacher and 1 paraeducator teacher.
Okay, so that makes it viable. Yes,
Yes.
because I was looking at the size and thinking it really wasn't. And I guess my final question, and I'll certainly leave this up to you and your great skills, is finding the staff to expand this program. And now I am sure every LEA and traditional K-12 district is out there looking at hiring staff for these new programs. So good luck.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. We're in a good space. Many of our schools, it's kind of a baby steps moving forward with TK. And so we're adding 1, maybe 2 TK at each site. And some sites are transferring their kindergarten teacher to TK.
I think
That was my question.
I think that Director Block is trying to show us a future pre-K student is what we're having there.
And just to show you that this one has already got the little phone and working on it. She's only a year and a half? She's a year and a half old. So she's ready for TK already. So it's good to
We'll
have
be
her.
waiting for her.
Yes.
Hi, sweetheart. We'll be happy to have you. How
Yeah,
about
all right.
CIS, HLA, CCCS? We'll all be happy to have you.
And that was,
Bye-bye.
Jack, you answered the question. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, she answered the question, and I really, it's a great pathway for the students then to continue on through Gateway Charter. So I look forward to seeing the continuance of it. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, for qualified teachers in space. You know, that was my concern. Will we find the people we need and the space in order to make sure we have universal pre-kindergarten programs?
Well, I can certainly speak to the fact that Mr. Sample has done facility reviews with numerous people. I think Dr. McCormick was involved in some, Dr. Joy DeCoy was involved in some, but really looking at every corner in every campus to say, where else could you put that so we could have a TK? And I do believe they have identified space for the coming year. Staffing, we have had some success and we have some work to do. So, you know what, you have identified exactly what every access superintendent person is saying on the SUP council every week. How are we going to do this? We don't have the space. We don't have the staff. So we're certainly having all the same issues everyone else is having.
Yes.
I just wanted to add also that the Universal TK will have an add-on. There's a proposal of 2008-13 for every TK student to kind of offset some of that student to teacher ratio. I just wanted to add that in. I know Joy kind of touched it on a little bit. It's part of the presentation for the budget, but just figured I'd share that. Sorry, Mark.
Thank you, Elmira. And they are hoping that the ratio, that there is enough money to support the ratio moving to 1 to 10 in following years. But thankfully we're in a good place, and we have another year until the units and requirements for teachers actually fall into place.
Great. Mark, did you get your question answered?
No, I was just going to ask Joy, how is the partnership with SCOE and Head Start going?
That partnership is going really well. I've participated in multiple meetings, one-on-one with the head of preschool at SCOE and with the county director for Head Start. And she's actually facilitated, her name is Denise Lee for SCOE, and she's facilitated conversations between GCC, myself, and with San Juan, trying to get us to partner as a sub-grantee to provide preschool spots. That hasn't come to fruition yet, which might mean we will partner with Head Start to apply for our own preschool spots. But that would be a great addition to have Head Start, because Head Start really provides strong wraparound services for students, such as special ed and health and mental awareness for these students.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? This was just an information item only, right? No,
Yes.
no action required at this point. Anything else, board members? Seeing or hearing none, we shall move on. And thank you, Ms. Joy, for that
Thank you, Ms.
wonderful
Campbell.
report. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We are now moving on to consent agenda items. Am I correct? Yeah, we've reviewed the information on the universal preschool program. We have a lot of items for consent agenda. And it's, as you know, this is the end of the school year and getting ready for next year. So we have quite a bit that we need to look at. So I will quickly go down the list before I call for a motion. Adoption of GCC board meeting 6/7/22. Personnel consent agenda items, purchases over 30,000, revised hourly rate credential school nurse, revised curriculum list, job description, K-8 campus principal, job description Rancho Del Paso director, job description revised community outreach academy director, job description for CCCS director, job description for CTE program administrator, and job description for middle school programs administrator. These are the consent agenda items, and I will first entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I move approval.
All right, move approval. Mr. Anderson, Mark.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Yes, Jack.
Under the proposal for $30,000 about budget items above 30,000. Again, I think sometime in this coming year, we need to take a look at the over $100,000 with the Flippin group is one of those. I think all of those supportive programs that we have, we really need to start taking a look at them and evaluate them and to see if we can't provide some of the services ourselves with staff. So anyway, I support the consent agenda, but I just want to bring that up again.
Yes.
And I would tell you there are a variety of programs where we're getting more adept at train the trainer type models where we're doing more ourselves, but Capturing Kids' Hearts is not a program that lends itself to that. And I will say that in the coming year, we have an increase because we have not done a leadership blueprint in at least 3 years. And we have a large contingent of new administrators who need to go through leadership blueprints. So we recognize that the amount you see here may look more than last year, but I think it is a reflection on including leadership blueprint and some very specific programs that each campus asked for, not that we dictated as a GCC, and for which you can see in terms of the funding that they had some very specific funding that needed to be expended in this type of manner.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any other question?
Mr. Block had his hand
Mr.
raised.
Block? Okay.
Yes, I was looking at those too. I agree with Jack. And I was looking at those because I even looked at Captain's Kid Hard and I saw they had a $6,000 shipping fee. I said, what's that?
There is no shipping fee. If you open it, there is no shipping fee, Director Block. There is a line that says shipping that has nothing by it. And next to it, it says total. And I think that's what you're looking at, but it's not for shipping. It's for the total in the column above. There is no shipping in either one of these contracts.
Okay.
But I could see where you could have read it that way. So I certainly am not criticizing, but there isn't any shipping, just to assure you.
Yeah, because I said I'd go to Texas and bring it back for you for
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So seeing no other questions, okay, I will do roll call for the consent agenda items. Let me get my list. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Block?
Yes.
Mr. Mettenpick, absent. Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Campbell? Yes. So the consent agenda items have been approved with unanimously with board members. Okay, thank you so very much. And thank you guys, all of you, for your concerns and your continued looking at items and how we are spending our money. Thank you so very much. Okay, we are now to business. And that is the 2022-23 adopted budget.
So this item will be covered by our CBO, Ms. Amira Reyna. I know that she will also say this, but I want to give a huge shout out to her entire team. There were numerous system and other challenges and changes that kind of created some last minute stress, but everybody stepped up to the plate and gave a lot of extra across the last week. So I want to affirm Amira and her entire team for the budget that is in front of you today.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much, Dr. Peterson. And I just want to reiterate what Dr. Peterson has said. It takes a team effort for sure to get this done, not only from our business team, but also from our ed services team, our principals. Everybody was involved in terms of LCAP and other components that make this all work, including HR, salary projections, salary increases, and making sure that everything is in the best integrity to be able to present tonight. So I'll go ahead and get started with that to present your 22-23 adopted budget. Not on the right side. Okay. So just introduction and background. The budget today that will be in front of you, that's in front of you, is based on the governor's May revise. We will continuously monitor the state budget adoption and afterwards determine the impact on our assumptions. So there is the July enacted, which will be the final budget, and any changes will be updated after that date. The budget is due to our chartering authorities and our County Office of Education by June 30th. Some of the state budget highlights and some of the assumptions that were used for this budget is that our LCFF has been increased by the 6.56 mega COLA. Our concentration grant also remained at the 65% increase. As you recall, it was increased last year to 65%. That has maintained. So that's good news. Our lottery funding has been unchanged since our January revise. It's at $228 per ADA. That includes unrestricted lottery and restricted lottery. Those are combined numbers. Our special education funding has seen an increase with the COLA. So we've seen 6.56 increase. And that's now $820 per ADA versus the $715 we saw last year. Our SB 740 facility grant has also seen the increase of the COLA, and we're budgeting about 75% of our total rent against this grant. Okay, some of these next bullets that I will be going over are things that were proposed in the May revise, but are not yet finalized or approved. And so these are some of the things that will be finalized for the July enacted budget. So just wanted to mention some of the things that are out on the table that we're going to report back most likely at the retreat in August to kind of give you an update, or maybe sooner, not sure. But we will update you on the final decisions on these proposals. So as we talked earlier about the universal transitional kindergarten, there is a proposal to add $2,813 per TK ADA adjusted annually by COLA. So that will be part of the LCFF calculation. And again, it's to offset that lower classroom ratios required by TK. Child nutrition, where they're proposing a $596 million to fund universal access to subsidized meals because it's now a requirement that we offer 2 free meals per day per student that request one. Then we also have the California Healthy School Meals Pathway Program. That's $45 million of one-time support workforce readiness for school food service workers. The next bullet is educator workforce investment. As we all know, there's a shortage in teachers and staffing. So there's a $850 million one-time funding to build a teacher pipeline in educator competency. I can't say that word. The next one is the deferred maintenance. It was disclosed that charters will be eligible for this funding. There's proposed a $1.7 billion one-time funding for major repairs or replacements of building systems. So that is great news that we'll be eligible for these funds. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. Okay, continuing on to the list of proposed items that are not in our budget currently, but potentially will come into play depending on how they come into our charter world. We have the Golden State Pathway Program. That's $1.5 billion to support development of college and career pathways, which we have several of those ongoing already. Because I don't know if you recall, we had the A through G grant that was proposed this last year and awarded. So this is kind of in a combination with that. So that will be good extra dollars to implement that component of the Golden State Pathway. Inclusive early education, there's $500 million one time for the Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program. We have multilingual libraries, so $200 million proposed to create and expand these type of libraries. We have the dual enrollment proposal, $500 million one time to strengthen and expand the student access and participation in dual enrollment. So that's students enrolled in high school and community college potentially. So that's what that's for. Literacy support, $500 million for high need schools to train and hire literacy coaches and reading specialists. So I would imagine that this is early education, K5, K6, and most of our schools are high need, and therefore I would anticipate we would be receiving those funds. So until July, and even in July, we might still not know how it's going to roll out. But as information comes to me, I will be surely sharing that information with you guys. Okay, the next slide shows our ADA and the changes between the 21-22 P2 ADA and what we're budgeting for P2 ADA for the 22-23 year. And so we show a decline in CCCS of 25.11 COAs. We have an increase for the majority of our sites. I guess I won't read through all of them. I'm sure you guys can all see them. But overall, we have a total increase in ADA of 140 students. And a lot of it is because we've seen an uptick in enrollment in the last couple of months. That's one reason. And the other reason is we have projected our TK enrollment in here, right? We have to offer TK for those sites that have that are going to be having those students on campus. So that's partly another reason why it's jumping back up, right? Okay. We're going to go ahead and start reviewing the revenues. So first is our LCFF revenue, and we see a $5.6 million increase. That's due to P2 ADA increases, like I mentioned before, or as we're seeing in the previous slide of 140 more ADA. That's reflective of that 5.6. Also, the COLA increase of 6.56, right? Federal revenue, we see that coming down, or not coming down. It's at 904,000 more. So that is all the one-time federal ESSER that wasn't spent this year gets deferred over to the following year. So partly it's that. We also have other deferred programs, the Homeless Child and Youth Program. And then there was another one awarded this year also that was Deferred American Recovery Plan. And that's IDEA for special education. So those are programs that are rolling over to the next year. causing a little bit of an uptick in the federal sources. Going on to the other state revenue, you see an increase, and that's there's increases and decreases. And so I kind of mentioned those in this slide to talk about what's going up or what new money are we getting versus what money is dropping. And so it's a net effect of two things, right? And the increases are, we have expanded learning program. That's a $4.6 million increase to our budget, which is huge investment the state is making to the budget this year. Lottery, 44,000 more. The charter school facility, we have 132,000 more in that program. After school program, we're seeing an increase of 218. The career technical or CTE, we have some programs that have deferred money over to the following year. And CTE and strong workforce are two of those. And so that's why you see an uptick. Then that's quite a bit of money. But then you look at the decrease of things that are dropping. There's a lot of one-time expenditures that are coming down. So you have, or we have been awarded this year and we have to record it this year. And then you're not seeing that revenue in the next year because it has to drop off. Right. So the educator effectiveness, we got 1.2 million this year that we're not showing in the budget for next year because it was one time. You have the California School Partnership Program of 400,000. You have the special education learning recovery funding. Those are funds that were deferred, 342. You have the ag access and mitigation funds. Those were funds that were awarded in current year, but not in the next year. And then also the in-person instruction that was actually spent down fully at 1.1 million, and multi-tiered systems of support that were awarded this year, but the expenditures are over multiple years, right? So it's a net effect. It's a little complex, but that's what that 1 million increase is made up of. It's increases and decreases netted together. So I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end if you have any questions. Other local increases are just due to the COLA for special education from El Dorado County Charter that we participate in. And so that's what we're seeing there of 19,000. I'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. These are some of our revenue assumptions. Again, the LCFF assumptions of 6.56 COLA with 4,658 combined with all our sites of ADA, varying unduplicated pupil percentage of 71 to 87%. Our federal revenue, again, no increase in funding rates for the titles and no new ESSER awards for 22-23. Any ESSER awards that are still showing up are just deferred from one year to the next, right? Because there's carryover. Other state, we show the mandated cost block grant increased by the COLA, and it increased to $18.34 for our K-8 students, and then $50.98 for our high school students per ADA. Our lottery is unchanged at 163 for restricted per ADA and or for unrestricted, and 65 per ADA for the restricted lottery component. I already mentioned this, but the SB 740 grant will be funding 75% of rent. We have COA Elementary, we have EPIC, and we have now GIS TK, the church that we're applying for under this grant, or applied for under this grant. For ACEs, we've budgeted 152,000 for COA, 203,000 for HLA, and that includes carryover, and 203,000 for GIS. Strong Workforce Program, we have 263,000 for both CCCS and Sava combined. For the CTE program, there's 249,000 for Sava Sac City. Okay, so those are just some of our revenue assumptions, some of the things that are included in our revenue. Okay, now we're going to go over our expenditure categories, and we show a total increase of 17.7 million. And I'm going to be, if you have questions under this, I have another slide that I potentially can share at the end on why there's such a swing between estimated actuals and budget, but I'll go ahead and explain a little bit of the methodology on how our estimated budget is built. So our estimated budget is built on where we think we're going to land at the end of the year. If you look at our current year revenue, we're going to have a surplus of, I'll give you that number, about 7 million or so. We're going to have a surplus because we weren't able to hire all the positions that we wanted to hire due to the work, the personnel not being available. We're not, there's not enough teachers to hire. There's not enough paraeducators or what have you. So it's been hard to fill positions. And so some of these numbers are low because of that, right? And so this is really just kind of where you're going to land. Your budget is going to include your current year and your carryover from prior years. So what didn't you spend here is going to roll into your budget here, and that's going to be reflective of what this 93,000 or 93.7 million is, right? So it's your current year revenue and your carryover that you're budgeting in your budget year. Okay, so hopefully that will explain a little bit more. So
Myra,
looking at,
Myra, can you go back to that slide, please?
yes.
The second row, classified salaries, is that in error? Was that supposed to be, is that supposed to be 22 million? Or it's
No, that's supposed to be 2.
Okay, is that?
Yeah, good catch.
Okay, but that's not kept, so it's not as big as it looks like, because that's a 2 million. And that's taken into account to get to the 17, or is the 17 look that big because that was the wrong number?
No, the 17 is the correct number. The top number should be 2 million. You're right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good catch. Sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, certificated salaries and classified salaries. For both, we see a column movement of 2.5. That's your step increases. And then we also see the one-time payment off the salary schedule that you guys approve of 1.5%. And then we also board approved the salary schedule increase for ongoing on the salary schedule of 3.5%. We also have added positions. Like I said, we have higher enrollment. So you're going to see higher amount of teachers this year. You have all the universal TK classes that we have to hire for, the expanded learning program, and then also things that we were not able to hire for this year. We had some sites really impacted by not being able to get teachers in the classroom. So that is the main reason why you see a jump in these categories. Going on to the benefits, we're seeing an increase overall on all our benefit lines. One, we see increase in our classified and certificated salaries, which will just naturally increase your benefits. But we're also seeing the STRS and PERS continue to rise, right? You have the STRS increase from 16.92 this last year to 19%. And then your PERS from 22.9% to 25.37%. We assume a 6% increase in health and welfare. Your unemployment stayed the same. There's a slight increase in work comp. And overall, the other ones are pretty much, flat. So this is a huge impact. And this year, we're not seeing any relief for STRS or PERS like we haven't seen in other years. So books and supplies, we show an increase of 8.8 million. The bulk of the increases are sitting in the restricted side and are used as a placeholder until we have a full plan. And some of those examples are our ELOB funding. We're getting a massive amount of money for that. And it's not until we can touch bases with our sites and kind of figure out, okay, what's the plan? What are we spending these dollars for? Are we going to move it into salaries or services or a combination of both? So there is pieces in the budget where, there's more money than we have actions yet for. So it's somewhat of a placeholder. And so a lot of it you'll see on the restricted side of the house, where that line item is on the high end. We do have, although increased curriculum technology purchases, there's a lot of purchase orders coming through right now. As you can see from the 30K consent item, there is a lot of curriculum being purchased at this time. There's a lot of furniture for these TKers that are coming in, setting up these classrooms. So we do see this area increasing also due to that. Okay. I'm going to leave this slide on, and while I read what's on the next slide. So travel and conferences, you see this increase as pandemic risks decrease. You see more in-person trainings being offered. So that's why you see that jump up a little bit. Dues communication estimated. This is just estimated from prior year and kind of seeing what the cost of the dues and memberships are and kind of projecting up. Insurance increased due to higher property and liability risk in the insurance market. Utilities increased by the consumer price index of 6.11. So that's our consumer price index percentage this year. For rent and repairs, we have the new lease for GIS, church, for the TK students, and overall rate increases year after year. Professional services and other operating expenses. This was decreased significantly in order to keep the staffing at the level that there is. So we're seeing a lot of restricted dollars leaving us and having to restructure again, moving maybe things that are dropping into restricted buckets and having to give up some of those professional services in order to maintain staffing. And these are all site-based decisions. So the sites will decide what they're keeping and how they're going to manage their one-time funds. And again, this is mainly the restricted side of the house. Then you have your legal and audit fees increased due to the consumer index price of 6.11. Your field trips are also increasing as pandemics risk decrease. So you're seeing more field trips kind of happening at the end of this year, and we'll hopefully continue to see them happening in this coming up year. Licensed softwares decreased due to one-time license software needed to migrate with Twin River. So we did have one big expense this past year to migrate with to a new server. And so there is some licensing and components that are being reduced in that category this year. Communications, we're seeing that drop. We have gone into a contract with T-Mobile for hotspots to consolidate all our contracts into one. And so we're seeing a savings there in terms of bundling it all into one contract versus having 9 different contracts with our different sites. Okay. So that's exactly what I just went over. That's just the detail of what I just wanted you to visualize the numbers as I went through it. Your general fund capital outlay is budgeted to decrease 2.1 million. And those are the tenant improvements of the Sava Sac City expansion. So 75% of that project is done. We are still, as Sava administrators, invited you to come see. They're still wrapping up that project. So there's still about 25% left in the current year, in the 22-23 year, that we have to completely pay off those bills and get it finalized. So that's what that is. I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginning and ending balances of each of our sites. And so overall, you see it decrease by $3 million. And that is us using up the one-time funding that we're getting through ESSER on the restricted side of the house. So this $3 million that's coming down from the fund balance is just using up the one-time funding from the federal and state grants that were given to us for learning loss mitigation and pandemic relief. And just to kind of emphasize, the restricted beginning balance was 6.6 for 22-23. And our net of current restricted revenue minus current restricted expenses is 4.8. So that kind of tells you, okay, there's 4.8 million deficit. That's what this is showing you, right? It's eating up the beginning balance, right? Okay. Now going on to the building fund for Fund 35, we see GIS had a modernization funding grant that came in 21-22. I don't know of any new funding coming in for 22-23, so that was not budgeted. This is money that is handed over to San Juan that leads the work with this funding. We work in collaboration with San Juan to make sure that GIS has all the information, to make sure that the things that need to be repaired at that site or worked on are done. So that is GIS. Some of the risks that we're seeing in this budget is the inflation increase. And risk of prolonged inflation also pose an immediate risk to the economy. So that's something that was really emphasized on the May revise. The supply and chain bottlenecks directly impact inflation. So right now we have a lot of back orders, if you will, for certain things that we're trying to put orders through. Laptops, for example, are taking a long time to get here because there's no chips, right? So there are certain things that we're having a hard time getting, and therefore also costing us more to get those items, right? There's volatility in the stock market. And then we also have the Ukrainian-Russian war and potential surges of COVID-19 cases worsen the vulnerability of the economy conditions, right? So we have seen more cases affecting children with the different variances that are coming through. So we don't know how that's going to impact our next year. And then also over the next few years, we're still continuing to see STRS and PERS increases, right? Levels of staffing, supplies, equipment, and services not sustainable with significant one-time funding. So that's one of the things we got to just continually be aware. And, I've been in communication with our sites in terms of ensuring that that's, something we're continually making sure we're aware of. ADA loss also due to the COVID-19 absences. It has impacted us this year, and it could potentially continue to impact us in future years. In conclusion, with this significant amount of one-time funds, we are strategically looking at how we can ensure that we maintain a restricted, we have a balanced budget on our restricted side of the house. And so we will be looking at all the expenditures, ensuring that we're dropping off any one-time expenditures that were used with the ESSER and all our one-time funding that we're getting right now in order to stay balanced. And then also watching out for our July enacted budget to find for final proposals on the ADA protection, right? Increase to the base funding. There's been proposals of that. And also there's a proposal of one-time discretionary block grant. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what proposals come out and how that's going to impact our future. And so, I'm excited to see what the future holds. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but I want to acknowledge our budget analysts, Norma Vite and Grayson Ortiz, for the hard work they have put in for this budget. And also my two other administrators, Valerie Rogers and Yvonne Gracer, for their contributions for getting this massive budget put together with integrity for our students we serve. So I will entertain any questions at this time.
Okay, there we are. Yeah, Mark, Jack, did I see your hand? Yes, Jack.
Yes. Oh, Myra, I can't thank you and your staff enough. This is a tremendous challenge on this budget. And I point out we're nearing $100 million budget. I remember when it was less than $1 million. So
Wow.
it is a significant amount of growth. Fortunately, I had an opportunity to talk for a long time today to Omara, and she kind of gave me on the new format and so forth. I'm on a learning curve, and I really, really appreciate that. And you answered most of my questions. Just to support some of your observations, I think the COLA is certainly going to be higher than the percentage that you presented to us, given the rate of inflation. And I think also the budget is going to be really, given the economic situation now nationally, I certainly think having those reserves just in case, a contingency, whatever that may happen if there is certainly a downturn in the economy. And looking at it, I think, as you and I talked, I think now we're approaching, I don't know, $14 million, $14,000 for each one of our ADA for some of our programs, 13,000. That's a significant amount of money for each student, and just again points out, the need to, as much as we can, to maintain our enrollment and to deal with student absences. But anyway, thank you, and just really a significant amount of work. I know you burned a lot of midnight oil on this and to get through it. I really know that. So anyway, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Jack, Mark, I'm sorry, Mark.
I just also want to thank Omira for the outstanding work that she and her staff has had to do. And I appreciated you spending the time today talking with me and getting more granular in it. And you made me feel very comfortable with your thought process. So thank you again. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Omar, Harry?
Yes, sir.
Yes, looking at this, and one of the things I've said, it's a lot to deal with. And I would like to see, you gave us the decrease and the increase, but I don't know what the figure was. Said it was $50 and next year it'll be $20. And you just gave us $20. So I was trying to see how much money did we spend the year before for us to have the negative 710,000, 710 or something like that. And but I know it's a lot of work, and I got the budget and I started going through it. I was looking at the thing like 3 hours last night, and I didn't get finished. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have to just let it rest and try to get to it today. Then today I looked at it and I fell asleep. And I said, oh no. I said, okay, but this is a lot of work. I mean, a lot of changes that are going on. And this is the thing that we happen in the world. And I like the way you gave us all the thing about the inflation and this and that and so forth. And we're facing, because I look at the stock markets went up today, it might go down tomorrow. So, we sitting with the situation that's happening. So
it's very volatile. And right now also, and this is something I think I explained to Mark or maybe to Bruce, I don't know, but it's so volatile with all the one-time, or the budget can look really goofy sometimes when you have a lot of one-time funding that's there and some of it is being deferred. So it's not a stagnant, easy flow budget to follow, especially when you can't take those two things apart, right? And so all this one-time money is going to throw a wrench into the way it looks. And we're going to see that as long as there's huge one-time funding popping into this budget. So
I would certainly add to this volatility what was previously said, I think, by Mr. Turner, which is having significant reserves at a time like this are critical. Everything in the economic world is pointing to recession, and those one-time monies are not going to be here forever. So we have to be looking at a time when maybe volatility goes away, but also so do all of these large amounts of funds that we have. So some of the things that we're seeing as significant expenditures are because we have the one-time funds, because they need to be spent a special way, and we may not have those flexibilities in our multi-year.
And I appreciate, Amira, you talked to all of the board members, but the one thing that really impressed me is making sure that you're meeting with the principals and they realize that everything is not as it will always be, that there will be changes, and that you're continuing to meet with them to let them know that because you see one way now, it's not going to be that way always. So I appreciate the fact that you're meeting with principals and they realize that there are changes that could take place. So thank you very much.
Sure.
And thank you for talking to all of the board members, asking if there are any questions or if there's some things that we don't understand. So I appreciate that. Appreciate all your hard work and all of the work that your staff did with you to get us ready for today. And now we need a motion. Did you disown it, Jack?
I move approval.
Move approval? Yes, Mark?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick absent, Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. So the adopted budget has been approved for 2022-23. And again, our accolades and appreciation to you and your staff.
Thank you very much. I'll take that back to the team.
Please do, for presenting to us our budget.
And Madam President, I was remiss in not saying that our next item that we're going to be talking about with LCAPs, Dr. McCormick was very instrumental in leading that work. And that work was necessary in order for the team to get to an adopted budget. So she played a critical role in also setting up the team for success. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to say that she also carried a large amount of that work necessary to get to the adopted budget.
Thank you so very much. And with that, we will be moving now to curriculum and instruction. The fiscal year 22-23 Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and it is a public hearing. So we will now open the floor for the public hearing on the Local Control Accountability Plan for all of the GCC schools. Assistant Superintendent Dr. McCormick will now present on each school. Are there any public comments at this point?
Madam President, at this point, there have been no public comments that have came in.
All right, then we will continue with this item.
Great, thank you so much. I look forward, as this is my last LCAP presentation to all of you. So looking forward to sharing what our schools have come up with. And this is definitely not an individual task. The creation of 9 LCAPs is the true work of your 9 principals, directors on the programmatic side, as well as the entire fiscal team. And so affirmations to everyone. They jump in, they understand the changes, they react, they take care of each other. And this is such a big work. It truly is that, many hands make light work. So I can't thank everyone enough for being part of the team to help put these together. So before we start, just a brief reminder, we create our local control accountability plans as part of the federal requirement, part of the funding requirement with the local control accountability or funding formula. The plans that you have are 3-year plans. Last year was the initial year, and they will go through the 2024 school year. What we're going to talk about today is the update for 22-23, which is the second year of this 3-year plan. Stakeholder input is a key portion of how we guide the LCAP development. I'll talk a little bit more about that as I move through my presentation. And then one of the components, just like this public hearing, is the addition of 4 charter schools in making sure that not only do we address the 8 state priorities, but there are 20 required metrics under those priorities that we are now held accountable for specifically that had not been part of our requirement before. So that's why you see the metrics section expanded so much more as we have moved into this 3-year plan starting last year. There have been some changes to the design in the 2020 to 23 design changes. So we had some things that happened in 1920, and then we had this pandemic come along, and they've sort of integrated bits and pieces, but you really see them in our 22-23 LCAP, which is some sort of collapsing of some sections at the beginning of the LPAC or the LCAP, really a focus on making sure that the schools are reflecting not only their successes, but their identified needs, and then highlighting components of the LCAP on that sort of first section of the document. The documents are long. We're always continuing to try to find a way to make them transparent to those that are reading them, so they don't need to go so far into the weeds of the LCAP to really find out what the focus is. So they've continued to try to shorten that first section to allow for that to be more transparent. And then the comprehensive support and improvement sections, those carried forward. So one of the changes in this LCAP year is the state board has decided that we now have educational partners as opposed to stakeholders. We're all transitioning to this new word, but this is the portion of the LCAP where we drive what we need. So the first step in the LCAP process is engaging all of our educational partners, stakeholders, in finding what our identified needs are, doing that true needs assessment with data, with surveys, with really focus groups and meetings with our educational partners. That is the foundation of building our LCAP. Once we have identified those areas, then the principals will work with their teams to find out what the priorities are. And then that's when the fiscal team comes in and says, this is the amount of funds that you have. You've decided these are your priorities. How do we best fund those within your LCAP? Another interesting change that happened this year, which I'll talk about in several different ways. We have always had the requirement to show our increase or improved services, but there have been some caveats then, and maybe clarification would probably be the best way to describe this. This section of the LCAP has been difficult from the beginning. I have been involved in the LCAP process since the very first one, and even meeting with the Department of Education. Sometimes how they described this increased or improved services section wasn't as clear as we'd hoped, and we would get feedback from the department about our LCAP process that we weren't doing enough. You also have heard probably in the news that there have been some county offices of education, some districts that were not doing enough around this requirement to increase or improve services. An outcome of that is continued clarity on what they would like to see in our LCAPs around how we represent what we're doing specifically to support the needs of those high-risk students identified as our low income, our English learner, and our foster youth. Remembering that our supplemental and concentration dollars that funding is generated by those high need students. So making sure that we're identifying in our LCAP how we are directly providing either increased services, which means we're growing our quantity of services for those specifically identified high needs groups, or we're improving them because we're improving our quality. So whether that be teacher training so that we can provide a better layer of services to improve the quality of the services we deliver. There's now several places that our schools are being asked to identify that they're meeting this requirement to increase or improve services. You'll see it in the goals and action section. There'll be tables with sort of the summaries of expenditures that they'll have to recognize. And then there is always been this descriptor section, but we've been asked to add some qualifiers here of how we're going to measure these increased or improved services? In other words, is it a quality or a quantity outcome that we're looking for? And what tool are we going to use to make sure we have met that requirement? Also, starting in this 21-22 school year, if we have been unable to meet our increased or improved services percentage, which is generated by the LCFF calculator, we now have to carry over that unmet percentage into the coming year. So if you look into each of the LCAPs, you will see several of our schools now have an increased or improved percentage of over 100%. The blessing of federal dollars is we were able to move some of our typical supplemental or LCAP expenditures into some of those one-time funds. But unfortunately, what that also did is it caused us to not meet this 21-22, what they call our MPP. So then that number then gets carried over into subsequent years. This will be an area we'll need to continue to work on in the development of the LCAPs. And as we start to write that next 3-year plan to make sure that we're understanding exactly how we're meeting this percentage and being able to demonstrate that. Because if we continue to not be able to document that we demonstrate it, then that number, that percentage is going to continue to increase, which can eventually snowball. So understanding this was an interesting year because of the one-time federal dollars, but knowing that this will be a requirement that you will see in the LCAPs now about where this percentage is for each of our schools. Another fun challenge of the pandemic is we didn't have some state assessments, and we had some optional assessments last year. So our California school dashboards don't look the same. So of those 20 metrics that I measured, many of them are identified in the California school dashboard, and we were not able to do that identification as much as we could in pre-COVID years. Also, we have some local data that we're now self-reporting. So our schools had the opportunity to use some reflection rubrics to be able to identify those local indicators. You'll see those metrics represented that way. You also may see metrics that say that there was no data available. As we finished this school year, we were able to have those state assessments. In October, we will have a 2022 California school dashboard, and our schools will be able to use that data to continue to refine and define how we best serve students based on those 20 metrics that they have to report on. This is just sort of a summary slide of how we look at each of the goals. So there will be a goal and a description. They had those 20 metrics. They had a 2021 baseline. They have a 3-year out of a 23-24 outcome, but they're giving you a 21-22 update, even if it's not available, and they'll have to state that it's not available, or if they had local data, a local assessment, and some of our data is available. We track it with our student information system, and they were able to generate those outcomes. There are actions under each of the goals and an expenditure budgeted to those actions. We are reporting for 21-22 our estimated actuals. And then at the end of each section, there is a goal analysis. You used to see that as a separate document as the annual update. It has now been combined again in an attempt to try to shorten this very large document into a single section at the end of each goal that the schools will update every year to analyze how they did for the current or the prior school year. Okay. Each of our schools wrote goals that identify the 8 state priorities, but they're in some rather large buckets. So you'll see a goal relative specifically to student outcomes. You'll see a goal with the conditions of learning, and you'll see goals around student engagement. The metrics that are assigned to each of those goals fall under the categories you see here. So for student outcomes, they'll report on metrics of student achievement. And then there's other student outcomes, whether it be access to A through G requirements or expanded course offerings that they would indicate there. Our student engagement portion is around climate and parent and student and family involvement. And then conditions of learning are about access to courses, high performing contents and electives, and some basic conditions or your facilities that schools will report on. So I could, in not in a small presentation, go through all 9 LCAPs with you, but what I've done is pulled out some examples of what our schools identify as actions under these broad goals. So 4 conditions of learning, which is around really making sure we're allowing our students to develop college and career readiness. You'll see actions around expanding electives or development of IB programs, improving CTE classrooms, or pathways, buying classroom materials, providing additional staff training as just some of the actions that you will see under this goal. For student outcomes, which is really around what assessment systems do we have and how are we making sure that we can obtain the data we need to identify and improve our student outcomes, as well as provide supports that data tells us need to be in place, whether that's for our English learners or we know we need additional math support and training. As Sava mentioned in their presentation, they're doing much more of a focus on math. So in the Sava LCAPs, you'll see some focused actions around how they're providing that. Our instructional coaches are identified in our school LCAPs. Our data and information systems, whether it be our student information system or some of our other tools like iReady that our schools can use to identify student performance to standards. And then of course, often paraeducators can be our best supports to help provide that direct student need. Especially remember, we want those targeted supports to those high need students, such as our low-income English learners or our foster youth. And then the final large bucket is around engagement, and these are our connections. So how do we foster those relationships, whether it be making sure that we have nurses and LVNs to provide our families, our students, and our staff the information they need, or to serve as diabetic care for students on campus, offering expanded learning programs so that we can make sure that we're engaged in our community to best support families to have students in school, CKH, social emotional learning, the ability of our parent liaisons to work on our campuses to connect to our community. And often you will see in almost every action in our LCAPs around websites and other communication tools that we use to continue to engage with our families around how we best support student learning. And then my final slide before I go to questions is really sort of the components of the LCAP. Circling back to that concept of trying to make a single document, they have done some combining. So now in that document, you will see on that very first page, the budget overview for parents, which takes that budget work that Omira and her team put together and attempt to make it into a single document. So you will see for each school, their total budgeted revenue, their total budgeted expenditures, as well as how much they are directing to supporting those high need students. Because of the unique nature of our LCAPs last year, we will be always needing to include our annual update from 21-22 that had to do with how we supported distance learning. And then moving forward to the plan summary for 22-23, those reflections, our highlights. We do have 2 schools that are identified for comprehensive support and improvement. And that is CCCS and EPIC. CCCS has actually met the mark to be removed, but they're still receiving funding. So as soon as their funding expires, they'll be able to remove that from their LCAP. We talk about engaging and how we're going to engage our educational partners, those goals and actions, that section I talked about those descriptors of specificity around how we're serving our increased and improved services. And then finally, a new addition is some summary expenditure tables. So if you think back to several LCAP iterations before, we would include expenditures in a lot of detail on each goal page. Now they've taken that and really put it in a single table. So there's a total expenditures table for 22-23, and then those contributing actions. So that goes back to those increased or improved services and which actions we have said provide that principally directed support, as well as how much money we're attributing to that. And then we reflect on 21-22, taking that same expenditure table, but actually putting in our actual estimated actuals. And then finally the same for those contributing actions for 21-22. And that is the overarching summary of the 22-23 LCAPs, and happy to entertain any questions you have.
All right, Mr. Turner, Jack?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
You mentioned LCAP's been around now 5 years.
Oh, I think it's been longer than that.
I was going to say it's been
Uh,
around a long time.
Yeah, I don't, wherever we started LCFF, that's what I started. I actually remember saying to someone, I never want to be in charge of LCAP. And you know what happened? My dream came true.
Well, maybe in your
several
future,
times over.
in your future career, you won't have to at least do the presentations on LCAP.
Oh no, I will. I get to write them and do the presentation.
Oh no.
Yes.
I would really love to know how those districts that rolled in most of their LCAP money into salaries are explaining this to the state, because but that's the reason you're getting pushback, that, because that's what's happened to it. And it's sad. It really, really is sad. And I'm glad we've been able to use it as it was intended. And we're beginning to see that pay off. But I really, anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
According to the Google, LCAP first started in 2014.
Yeah, it's been around quite a while.
2014.
And changed. I don't know how many years is that? Every year since. Yeah, but
long and more involved.
Yes, in every attempt to make it shorter. And Mr. Turner, you're correct. One of the reasons that we see some of the pieces that we have now is based on some decisions that were made in districts around how they use these funds.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Block?
Yeah, I want to thank you for this, because you touched on the subject that I'm looking at today, and that's social emotional kids and stuff. There's a lot of that going on, and we don't go to the schools a lot, so these kids will have some issues and problems. I mean, they don't know how to say thank you, hello, and so this is one of the things that I'm looking at. I'm glad to see the LCAP included all of that with the parents and teachers and students. That's a great teacher to me. So thank you very much for presenting this. Let us see all of this going on.
And I think, Director Block, that also kind of brings up a point that, again, maybe Melissa can take a note. In the fall, it'd be nice to do a study session item on the major components of social emotional learning and what our various schools are trying to do in those areas, as you said, to recognize some of those very large missing pieces in our students, especially post-pandemic.
All right. We do not have any other public comments, do we, Mr. Sample? No other
for the
public
mute
comments.
button. There are no other
Okay.
public comments that have came in.
Do we have any more board questions or comments? We want to thank you, Ms. McCormick. This is an information item only for this evening. So at this point, I will close the public hearing. All right. No other questions on that. We will be moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is personnel. Employment agreement, GCC cabinet members. It's recommended the board approve the employment agreement for the 22-23 school year for the cabinet. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I move approval.
Move approval, Mr. Turner.
Second.
Ms. Anderson, second. Any discussions? Any questions? Any comments? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call. Mr. Anderson, Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. This item has been approved unanimously. So that brings us down to our board comments for today. Any board comments? Yes, Jack.
Well, as always in these presentations at the end of the academic year, I really appreciate the work the staff has done. It's just, I know we finally finished them, and also again the budget presentation and the amount of work that went into that. I can't imagine the hours that were spent with the staff and a budget that size and as many charters that we have. But again, really appreciate it, and hope that that's carried back to all the people that worked on the presentations and the budget.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Well, I personally want to thank all of my board members for the organization chart that we did today. And we will continue to do our best work for GCC. Thank you. Thank you for your wanting to continue the board as we're doing. And again, I too want to thank Omira and Christine and Jay, all of you for the whole work. And Maury, we're so glad to see that you are now part of the cabinet and you're here with us each of the meetings. So thank you for being present.
Thank you, President Campbell.
All right, looking forward to another good year as we have had already and all of the exciting things. So thanks for the LCAP, thanks for the budget and all of the things. We appreciate all the hard work. Okay, announcements for the next board meeting.
Madam President, our next board meeting will be tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. special board meeting. And our next regular scheduled board meeting will be July the 12th at 4:45 p.m.
Okay, so tomorrow, regular board meeting at 2 p.m. Special.
That is correct. Special board meeting tomorrow.
All right, board members, we will see you again.
Well, I may be, Lily, I was going to ask, I think I can make it, but if I'm a little late or something, it's a short item. Do you have a quorum for tomorrow?
I believe so. I haven't heard that anyone is going to be out. It is.
Okay.
It is a short. It's only about 12.
It'll be a little tight.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine because we just have I think one item for approval. All right. Anything else for the good of the organization? Madam Superintendent, Mr. Sample, anyone? Seeing or hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment and thank all of you for your hard work and all of the information we have. May I entertain a motion? Adjourn. So move.
Second.
Second. It has been moved in second. Any discussion? All in